If you are in a deserted forest and a tree falls, does anybody hear it? You've all heard that saying. Similarly, if you post something to social media that nobody sees, what is the point in doing so? This is a post that I put on Facebook, on the Convince and Convert Facebook page recently. It was a podcast that I did, the Social Pros podcast that Nick co-hosts with Josh Burnoff from Forrester Research. This post, as you can maybe see in the corner, reached a whopping 81 people. So essentially the first two rows. So I think we can agree that that post has poor reach. I think the official term is poor reach. But total reach isn't really relevant. That's what we're going to talk about today. Total reach isn't really relevant. What you need as a brand, as a social media professional, is reliable reach. And reliable reach is the ability to send a message to somebody who has requested that you send them messages. They have taken some behavior that says, hey man, I would really like to hear from you. Maybe they clicked a like button. Maybe they clicked a follow button. Maybe they subscribed via email. Maybe they did something else, skywriting, lasers, I don't know, but they did something to say, yeah, I would really like to hear from you. So reliable reach is that you can send a message to that group and that person will actually receive the message. And so I ask you, is that too much for businesses to ask for? Is reliable reach too much for us to expect at this point? Because we have had and we have enjoyed reliable reach in a lot of other ways, in a lot of other media throughout history, even throughout marketing history. Email offers reliable reach, does it not? If you subscribe to my daily email newsletter, you will get an email from me every day. You will actually get that email, I promise. Now, you may not open it. You may not click any links in it. You may even be irked that you got it yet again today. But you sure as hell are going to receive it because you asked for it. That's reliable reach. The telephone offers reliable reach. If I call you, you can choose to answer the phone, or like 99.2% of the people here, let it go to voicemail. And you can listen to that voicemail and then choose to do whatever you're going to choose to do. But you actually received the call. That's reliable reach. Direct mail offers reliable reach. If I send you something, right? I mean, Victoria's Secret, for some reason, thinks I need 7 catalogs a week, right, because of my clear lingerie issues. And so I get 7 catalogs a week, which I think is maybe excessive, but that is reliable reach. It doesn't go off into some, space. It actually shows up in my mailbox. Hell, even fax offers reliable reach. If you still have a fax machine and I have your fax number, I don't know why I would, but maybe I do, and I send you a fax, it will come out of some sort of dusty fax machine in your house or e-fax into a PDF or something. It'll come out in the curly paper. I can actually send you something. That is reliable reach. But today, in the modern social media platforms that we've talked about so much for the last 2 days here at Social Fresh, reliable reach and that same concept barely exists. It barely exists. So what we talk about all the time in social media is impressions, but it's not actual impressions. When we say impressions, what we really mean is potential impressions. And the difference between potential impressions and actual impressions is the biggest business lie since magic potions. Because, friends, if I send a tweet like this one, what a good-looking and smart group of attendees at Social Fresh in Orlando, and you really are. You live stream people should be able to see this crowd. They are fantastic. If I send this tweet out, nowhere near 122,000 people will see it. Nowhere near. Even though those 122,000 people have said, Jay, I want to hear from you. They have clicked a button to prove that they want it. In fact, if you look into the ads platform on Twitter, behind the scenes, what I will tell you is that when I send out a tweet like this, approximately 2,000 people will see it. 2,000 actual reach, 122,000 potential reach. That's not apples and oranges. That's apples and grass or something, or apples and cows. I mean, that's not even like the same species. And it's not just Twitter. The same thing happens on Facebook. The same thing happens on Google+. The same things happen on LinkedIn. And the same thing happens in particular on business pages for Facebook, where reliable organic reach has nearly disappeared in many cases, as Carrie Kirpin said yesterday in her fantastic kickoff to this Social Fresh event. So what all of us are doing, what we're all trying to do is fundamentally the same. We may do it in a different way or with a different budget or with a different target audience, but we're all essentially doing the same thing. We keep sending more and more messages, trying to reach people who ostensibly care about us, but mostly what we're getting is a busy signal. There are, in my estimation, 3 reasons why reliable reach is nearly impossible in today's major social media platforms. Now, the first reason is the very nature of what we've come to call the social stream. The social stream. And almost all of the major social media platforms that we use today employ this stream dynamic, which essentially is a one-to-many relationship, a one-to-many infrastructure, a one-to-many messaging schema. I send a message and multiple people are intended to receive it. Certainly Facebook works like that. Twitter works on a one-to-many platform. Google Plus does as well. So does LinkedIn. So does Pinterest. So does Instagram. So does Vine. And so does YouTube. In fact, this one-to-many concept is the very heartbeat of the everybody is a publisher philosophy that brought us all here. Without the concept of everybody is a publisher, everybody wants to be a publisher, everybody should be a publisher, being a publisher is a good thing, without that philosophy, nobody would be sitting in this room right now. Not a single one of us. But maybe, looking forward, one-to-many isn't the answer. Maybe we don't all want to be publishers. Maybe that was a snapshot in time, not a trend that will live forever. Because if you look at how young people are using social technology and mobile technology, if you look at the youth for a clue to the future, what you find is that most of the platforms that young people gravitate toward are not inherently one-to-many. They're one-to-one or one-to-a-few. I have 2 teenagers. They don't want to be publishers. They really don't. They just want to connect with their friends. That group of 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 people, that is their tribe. They have no desire to build a personal brand. And if you look at tools like Snapchat, like WhatsApp, like Kik, like Secret, and even text messaging, all of those are driven by one-to-one or one-to-a-few relationships, not one-to-many. And there's a terrific tweet not too long ago from David Sachs, who's the CEO of Yammer, and he said, both WhatsApp and Secret represent the ascendancy of the phone book over the friend graph. It's back to the future. And he's exactly right. Exactly right. I am old enough to remember the era before we all decided to become publishers. And I wonder if that era isn't going to come back. And when and if it does, we're going to have to fundamentally change the way we think about social technologies for business. And that's what I want to bring up today. Now, the second reason that reliable reach is really, really difficult is that when everybody, fundamentally, certainly everybody in this room, but when fundamentally everybody in social media is trying to be a publisher, when everybody is seeking reach and impressions and attention and eyeballs, can anybody, me, you, Yahoo, JetBlue, can anybody be a publisher with reliable reach? I don't know. I really don't know. Because in today's big social platforms, not WhatsApp or Secret, but Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and Pinterest and Instagram and all of that, as Chris Moody said, you are competing against everything. Against everything. Yes, of course you're competing against your competitors, but you're also competing against your own customers. You're competing against your customers' friends and family members. I'm going to show you my actual Facebook feed. This is an excerpt from my actual Facebook feed to show you what I mean. Okay, the first thing I saw on Facebook was this post from my friend Dave Thomas. Some of you may know Dave. He's the head of social strategy for Salesforce.com. And here he's talking about the fact that his son, Conrad, made a windmill at Lego camp. Oh, right? So it's the kind of things you say on Facebook. Next, I saw this post from my friends at the Upland Brewing Company, which is the craft brewery in my hometown of Bloomington, Indiana. Woo! One person from Indiana. And so apparently the brewing company is going skydiving for a company trip. And I'm not in HR, but I'm thinking that it's not really my core skill, but if you have a brewery, you should never go skydiving for a company trip. You just never do that. Never. Whatever. And next I see something from my wife bitching about something. And then, this is real Facebook, right? I told you, this is real. This is how it actually works. And then something from one of our clients, the Wyoming Office of Tourism, talking about a film contest that they're doing online. So let's recap this. My Facebook feed looks something like this, okay? I have something from a friend, and then something from a company, and then something from a family member, and then something from a company. And guess what? Yours looks exactly the same. And so does the Facebook of every customer and potential customer that you have, and so does Twitter, and so does Pinterest, and so does Instagram, and so does the email inbox. It's a combination of personal and professional. You're competing against everything. And that only happens online. It really only happens in social and email, right? Dave Thomas is not taking out print ads to make sure that I know his kid made a Lego windmill, right? My wife is not complaining on billboards, fortunately for us all. So you're also competing against the flotsam and jetsam of life and sports and celebrity. I made the mistake, and I got to tell you, don't do this. Here's a little tip. I made the mistake of clicking one of the trending links on Facebook on the right-hand side there, and I got this like deluge, and I had to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll through thousands, not kidding, thousands of posts, all within like 12 minutes, about the fact that Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes were about to have the most beautiful baby in the history of baby, right? That's your competition. Super baby is your competition for attention, right? Super baby. Good luck. So here's the bad news. Your brand, I don't care what your brand is, your brand is an interloper. You're an interloper. You're tolerated in social media because your participation keeps social media free for consumers. Show of hands here. How many of you, as consumers, as individuals, and we're all consumers first and marketers second, how many of you as consumers say, you know what my favorite thing is about social media? The fact that companies are involved, right? Nobody says that their favorite part of social media is company participation. Nobody. So what we end up with is a cacophony, a communications cacophony in this one-to-many, everybody is a publisher world that is simply staggering. And when you get into the math and science of this, it's impossible to even get your head around. Facebook has said in interviews that the average Facebook user is due 1,500 pieces of content every time they sign on. 1,500. Yours is one of those. They can't give you 1,500. You can't consume 1,500. Nobody is going to scroll that much unless it's about Super Baby. So, of course, they give you some cross-section of that 1,500. And what that means is that reliable reach, your ability to connect with the people who have said they want to hear from you, is negatively impacted because of this infinite competition for attention. We are due too much content. We have overliked, essentially. We have oversubscribed to information. And the third reason why reliable reach is so difficult is that, frankly, the social media channels that we're all using, that we're all trying to use to succeed, are economically incentivized to not give us reliable reach. Why would these companies give us reliable organic reach for free when we have proven that we are willing to pay for it? Right? Why buy a cow when you can get the milk for free, I think is how the saying goes. Here's how this looks with math. In 1 year, from 2013 to 2014, February to February, Facebook's stock price increased 154%. That's the blue bar. During the same 12-month period, organic reach went from 12% to 6%. And now for many people, it's down in the 2, 3, 4% range. Just by frame of reference, yes, we've had a good stock market run lately. By frame of reference, the S&P 500 increased 17% during that period, compared to 154%. Most social platforms, almost all of the major social platforms, with the exception of Pinterest, I think I'm saying that correctly, yeah, other than Pinterest, most social platforms are now public companies, meaning that they are legally responsible to maximize success. Theirs. And maybe yours, if it happens to work out. But their priority is their success. Their priority is that they make money, not that you make money. And that doesn't make them evil or bad. It just means that this is no longer fun and games, right? This is about media first and social second. And that may hurt people's feelings, but this is the same dynamic, the same progress, the same revolution that happened with email and SEO and web design and mobile, and it will continue happening. I bought a long time ago, I've been in digital now for 20 years. A long time ago, I bought the very first ad ever on Inc.com for a web hosting company I worked with. In fact, my partner essentially invented web hosting, which is another story. So we bought the first ad ever, and people were sending us hate emails, dozens and dozens per day. How dare you sully this website with an ad? It becomes a business. It always becomes a business. The free lunch on Pinterest and the free lunch on Instagram that we're all enjoying right now is going to come to an end because Facebook has proven that the bait and switch will work. They have proven that we're all sheep. We're like, great, thanks for allowing us to reach all these people for free organically. And then they turn off the switch. We're like, I guess I'm going to have to reach for the credit card. They're going to do the same thing, so you might as well get ahead of it. What should you do about this? I believe that it's time to value the shotgun over the rifle. The rifle approach is what we've all been taught to do in social media. It's what we've all kind of come up on, that sort of philosophy. That the rifle approach is that you invest in excellence, that quality always wins. Just be awesome. Just create great content that's better than what your competition is doing, and you will succeed. And that can be true, but it's definitely not always true. The rifle approach that we've all come to believe our best practice is to build a great community on the back of outstanding content and sharp engagement. And you've seen some terrific examples of the rifle approach here at Social Fresh, as you always do at this terrific conference. The reason I've been to lots and lots and lots and lots of Social Freshes is that it is one of the very finest conferences in this country, and thanks so much to Jason and the team for putting together another great year. Great job, you guys. So the rifle approach says that you don't even get involved in a social platform unless you can do it right. You know what I'm saying? You guys have all heard this. Like, hey, you shouldn't colonize Pinterest, if you will, unless you can really do it well. Like, don't do anything unless you can do it well. You can go to my site right now and see a shit ton of blog posts that I wrote with the exact same advice as that. Don't do anything until you can do it well. And I'm going back on that advice. The rifle approach says that you develop a unique editorial approach for each platform. You've got a goal and a content objective for Pinterest, and a goal and a content objective for Facebook, and a different one for Instagram, etc. But I think that the absence of reliable reach makes this rifle approach inefficient and, frankly, contrary to mathematical reality. When you get into the science of this, and out of the kittens and bacon of this, as Jason Miller would say, the story is a little different. So I think it's time to consider, for many of us, the shotgun approach. And the shotgun approach says that there really is no magic bullet, that quality doesn't always win. So what you need to do is invest more in broader distribution. The shotgun approach says that you should be pretty much everywhere, and that total platform size is secondary and maybe not relevant at all. Because, yeah, Facebook may have 1.2 billion users, but if only 81 people see your post, the 1.2 billion figure is not terribly relevant. It really doesn't matter, because 1.1 billion, 999 million, 900,991 of those people, or whatever it is, didn't see your post, right? So that is not a big, important number to you. The shotgun approach says that since there's frankly no way to guarantee that a particular message will be seen by a particular person unless you pay for it, that probably what you should do is send messages on multiple platforms to maximize the chances that something that you send will reach the people that you're trying to reach. So what this means is that you should probably be increasing your publication frequency, and you should probably be increasing the number of platforms where you are participating. You essentially need to make more content in more places. There's two ways to look at that. The good news is, if you're a social media professional, it sounds like that's a lot of job security, because you got to go do more stuff in more places. Yay! The bad news is that has to come from somebody. Either you're going to get busier than you already are, or you've got to go fight for resources. And if you're thinking about, hey, you know what, we should probably add some people to the team, or maybe it's time to ask my boss for more people on my team, it is time. It is time. Yesterday was the time to do that. Because I don't care if you have a huge team or a medium-sized team or a small team, in the next year, your team needs to get bigger. Period. For everybody. The shotgun approach says that you should be atomizing your content and posting similar messages, but in different ways in a lot of places. I loved what Lauren was talking about with the PGA Tour example, where she would take an idea, right, a concept, and then put that concept in different social channels in a slightly different way. One way on Pinterest, a different way on Twitter, a third different way on Facebook. That's absolutely the right approach. That's the atomizing content approach that allows you to participate broadly without having to reinvent the wheel every time you have something to say. Graphically, this is the rifle approach, right? Companies like you, like me, using a social platform like Twitter to reach as many people as possible. You're essentially using social technologies as the middleman, as the conduit for your communication. The shotgun approach looks at it this way, that the company uses multiple social technologies to surround your audience. To surround your audience, because you can't just rely on Twitter or any one network. Instead, you share that responsibility, you spread that conduit responsibility across as many technologies as possible. So the shotgun approach seeks to build what I call a touchpoint corral. A touchpoint corral that connects each of your customers and fans to your brand in as many places as possible, in as many social networks as possible, plus email, plus SMS, plus skywriting, whatever else comes next, telepathy. What you want to do is be able to reach that person in as many different ways as you possibly can. And when you think this way, you end up with different success metrics as well. You start changing the way you think about the math of social media. In a shotgun approach, what you want to look at is total connections across all channels. How many connection points does our brand have across the whole universe of social technologies? That's a shotgun metric versus how many people are we connected to in any one channel. The other key metric is what is your average number of connection points per customer? So if I'm connected to Jason Keith on Twitter, that's 1. But if I'm also connected to Jason on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram, that's 4. An average of 1 versus an average of 4. Increasing that average, building that touchpoint corral so that you have more and more ways to reach each individual person, that, I believe, is the future. Now, this shotgun approach is not easy because it requires you to create more content in more places, and it also requires, ideally, a unified view of your customers across social. This is holy grail stuff. Because what I want to be able to do is look into a database and say, this is Jason Keith on Twitter and on Facebook, and here who he is on LinkedIn, and here's who he is on Pinterest, and here who he is on Instagram. That technology exists, kind of. But a lot of people who are extraordinarily smart are working on making that horizontal, unified view of customers and fans possible for us all. And when that day comes, you'll start to see this kind of corral thinking move to the forefront because it allows you to get back the reliable reach that we have frankly lost. Now, I recognize that this shotgun approach, this do more and more places, that quality doesn't always win. I completely recognize and acknowledge that this isn't the way that we've been taught is the right way to do social media. I get that. But friends, the rules of the game have changed, and they will continue to change. That doesn't mean that you can't have tremendous success. You can. You can continue to have overwhelming success. You can build your business, you can build your career, you can do all the things you've always wanted to do. But the changes in the math of social media, require you to ask yourself one simple question. One question that we all need to ask ourselves when we get in the plane tonight or when we get in the car. Is the shotgun more effective than the rifle? Chew on that. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.